Hi, this is Wallace from Capturing Reality, and today I'm going to show you how to make CLI scripts. If you saw my previous video, what I did was I took photographs of two sides of an object, put them in two folders, side 1 and side 2, and then we glued them together to make a complete object using PPI. So this is a script that does the same thing. It's quite simple. Basically, it repeats itself halfway through. So at some point, we're going to copy and paste the first half to the second half, and then there's a little bit of the extra because there's basically 3 projects involved. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to be in Notepad++, but you can use any text editor, and I'm going to make a new file, and we're going to go through line by line. So I'll start with the first line. Just copy and pasting in there, and the first line is just the path to RealityCapture. Yours will probably be the same. And then at the end here we got this arrow pointing upwards. This just means that the script will just go on to the next line instead of you having to write it all out in one big long line. So let's go down to the next command, add folder, paste that in there. Now, one thing you might not recognize here is this percentage squiggly line, which is called a tilde, DP0, and then side 1 is the name of my folder. I'm eventually going to save the batch file in here, and this is all I've got. I've got the license, got one side of images, and I've got the other side of images. So this percentage tilde DP0 will fill in the path to where the batch file was launched from. So I will save it there. So basically it's going to go there, and then we have the side 1 folder in there. I'm going to be using this a lot because it's an easy way to get to the files you need. So next line, set project coordinate system local 1. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to set the project coordinate system to local 1, which is Euclidean. We'll actually be doing that in the GUI in a second as well. And first command with a parameter. Next line. Note these up arrows at the end, because if you don't put them in, the script will just stop in whatever line you don't have one on. So detect markers with this settings file, which doesn't exist yet. So we're going to go into the GUI and make that settings file. So I'm going to copy the name of it so we don't end up with any typos. Control C, and let's go into the GUI here. Now, as I said before, one of the first things I'm going to do is in the workflow tab, I'm going to go to settings, coordinate systems, and it's already in Euclidean. So if it's not, just change it to Euclidean. And we're going to go to alignment, and if you see, detect markers is actually grayed out. You need some images in there, because otherwise there's nothing to detect markers on. So I just dragged in side 2, and now you can see you can click on detect markers. So there's detect markers. Let's get rid of the application settings. And you may not have noticed before, but here you can reset all the settings for detect markers. Here you can load settings, and here you can save settings. And this is what we're going to do to get that XML we need. But I'm actually going to change this because I'm going to set this to 5. Because what happens is sometimes RealityCapture thinks it's seen a marker, but it hasn't. But it tends to do that only once or twice, and definitely not with the same marker. So if you put required measurements to 5, then you won't be getting those false positives. So we'll just get the markers which are actually in our photos. Just quickly show you an example of a photo, and there you can see I've got the markers on the board there. This A4 printout is going to be in the downloads, which you can find in the description of the video. So you can use the script just straight away. You don't even have to follow this video if you don't want to. Let's go back. So let's save those settings. and this is the path to CLI from scratch, and I'm going to paste in the name, and it will add the XML extension to the end of it. So if we go in there, we've got detect settings.xml. So let's go back to our script, and there you go, you've got detect markers using these settings. Right, next line, we're going to do a lot in the GUI here, and I think I'll just mention that you might be wondering, what's the point of writing a script if you're spending your whole time in the GUI setting everything up? Well, that's all we're doing here, is just setting up this board. So once you've done all of this and the board's set up, you can just put objects on the board, photograph sides 1 and 2, and then just run the script straight away. You only need to set up the board once. So here we have import ground control points, and that is the ground control points file, which we're going to make in a second, and that's the settings for importing the ground control points. So let's go back into the GUI, and I'm going to detect markers actually. So if I make a 2D, I'll show you that the markers have been detected, not on that image because there isn't any. There we go, you can see on that one it's found both markers. So I'll go back to a 3DS and we'll hit align. And there's the alignment. I only did this so I can see where the markers relate to one another, because now I need to put in the values to make them into ground control points. So let's unfold the control points. I'm going to use 17 as my origin. So click on 17 and I'm going to change it into a ground control point and leave it at 0, 0, 0 because it's going to be my origin point. So 22 is going to be my off on the x-axis for me, so I'm going to make that ground control, and on the x I've measured this board, and I happen to know that if you want to make your own, you have to create your own measurements if you want to make a new board. But I know that the distance between all these points are in a perfect square, and the measurement is 17.8 centimeters. So 0.178 on the x-axis for that one, and 19 is going to be the same on the y-axis. .178, and 24 is going to be 0.178 on the x and y-axis. So that's my ground control point setup. So let's just align again, see if they go into the right places. Okay, there we go. You can see 17 is my origin. It's right bang in the middle of the things, and then they go off in a perfect square. So we're all good to export the ground control points. So let's go to alignment, export, ground control. And we need to remember this because this is going to be in our settings. So we've got comma separated, name, X, Y, alt, as in altitude. And we want to save it into the same folder because that's the path we have. And I'm just going to go to my script to copy what it's actually called. Marker positions I called it. Back into RealityCapture, and let's call that marker positions. The CSV will get added, and comma separated name, X, Y, alt, marker positions. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's go back. No thanks. Just want to show you that we actually have the license here, so you don't have to pay to license them, so you can just drag and drop plain license onto there, and there you can see all the images are licensed. So let's just do that again. Let's export ground control, paste in the name, marker positions, and save. So there we go. Let's double click on that, show you. Okay, that's all good. Got our marker positions there. So the next thing that we need to do is the settings for importing the ground control point. So let's just pretend we're importing those ground control points. So alignment again and import ground control. I'm going to select that file, and we can save the settings from here. You can save the settings in almost all the dialogues. So we've got to make, now this is wrong. So we need to change that because we're on X, Y, Alt. So that would make a total mess if we kept it on the default. So let's change that. If we extend this box, we can actually see our options. So name, Alt, accuracy. No, we want name, X, Y, Alt. Character separated. The character is a comma because we are comma separated, and we want Euclidean. So that is our settings for importing the ground control. So again, that little down arrow, I'm going to go back to the script and call them GCP settings. And again, the XML extension will be added. Let's save that. We don't actually want to import them again. So let's have a look. We've got our GCP settings. Yep, they're in there. So that line's all ready to go. We've got both parameters. Now, I'm going to show you, if you want to be writing your own scripts, go to help or press F1. And if you type in CLI here, you get the list of commands. And now you have all of the CLI commands here. So if we go to, if you click on it and click Control F, and then import ground control points, you can see this first column is required parameters, and the second column is optional parameters. And then you have a description of the command here. So we needed that, the GCP files, and then it's an optional, it'll stay on default if you don't choose to have an XML for the GCP import, but ours would have been a mess on default, so we needed that as well. And it's the same for all of the commands you can find in the help section here. So I'm just going to go out of that. So that line is set up. Let's go to the next line. Is align. It's very self-explanatory. That's just aligning everything. And then now we have set reconstruction region, and that's going to load a box which we now have to save, which I've called object. So I'm just going to copy that name. I'm going to get any typos, Control C. And now the first reconstruction region we're going to make is to reconstruct the object. And then in a minute, we're going to make another reconstruction region to delete everything that isn't the object. Similar to, if you saw my last video of how we filtered away, but we're going to use boxes this time because obviously last time you could do it manually. So what I'm going to do is this reconstruction region, when it's saved, is going to be georeferenced. And so it's always going to be at the same place relative to those markers if you use this board again. So I know, I mean, when I use this again, I can just remember where this reconstruction region is. I mean, I can put things quite far outside the markers it's going to reconstruct. And the reason I've gone that crazy height is not for this object, but for any future objects that I want to, I could maybe put a vase on there and it'd be right up here. So I want this reconstruction region to be bigger than this current object so that the script can be reused with multiple different types of object. So that looks actually about right to me. It's about the size of the board itself and a lot taller and goes down below. So we're going to save that reconstruction region as object. So go to Mesh Model, Export Reconstruction Region, and call it Object. So that line is also ready. So reconstruction region, let's go to the next line. And as we did in the previous video, we'll calculate a preview model. That's the super fast one for our masks. That one's also self-explanatory, calculate preview model. And now we're getting into the filtering section. So select large triangles, rel, and I'll show you what that is in a second. Let's just go back to the help. Click here, Control F, and select large triangles. And then you see there's two options to select the large triangles, absolute and relative. And there's a required parameter of edge size threshold. And in the description it says, select triangles with an edge length larger than the threshold, edge size threshold, multiplied by the average edge length. So basically what this means is, if there's a triangle which has an edge length which is 30 times longer than the average triangle edge length, it's going to select that triangle as a large triangle. So we can go on to the next line, which is going to be to remove those triangles, because we don't want those massive ones. They're no use to anybody. And let's go to the next one. So now we have our reconstruction region for deleting triangles, which we shall now make, which I've called for cut. So we go out of this, 3ds, okay, so let's make this one. So obviously it has to be bigger on every dimension than, oh, that was down, wider, make it really big, just to delete everything. And then I'm going to go to a side view, any side view will do, left, and then we want to leave the object. Everything in this box, every triangle in this reconstruction region is going to get deleted, so I'll just go a little bit higher. Seems to be a bit of noise there. So hopefully that's going to get rid of everything apart from the object. So we can go back, perspective view, and there's my filter box a little bit lower. Get rid of all that stuff. Okay, so again, mesh model, export reconstruction region, and I have in the clipboard the name of it, for cut, save, same place, and we can move on to the next line of the script, which is going to be select the triangles in the reconstruction region, and then remove triangles. And now, because this line here is export depth and mask, to export our masks, we need to license the files first, otherwise it won't be able to export anything. So I'm going to put this command in here. Now this command is import license, and it has a path, you know, from where the batch file was executed from, and we already have the license file in there with the correct name, plain.rc license. Now that's not actually a particularly great way of doing it if you want to automate this normally. So what you would normally do is, there's another command, I'm going to delete this in a second, which is get license, and then if you've used PPO before, you've probably set up a PIN on the website, so then you just put your PIN in. So obviously you need to be signed in with the right account, and then, you know, now if you do that, then, you know, you can use this script to run really fast on new objects every time, because obviously you can't have already licensed it before you start. Or you could drag and drop all your things in and then edit the script with the name of the license there. But I think get license is probably a better option if you're confident enough in your capturing ability to just run the script and hope for the best. But I'm not sure I advise that. So I'm going to delete that. So we'll just leave it as import license, because this will work for this data set. And then now export depth and masks, and we have a setting for that, which I'm just about to make. There we go in here. So we're going to need a model first. So I'm going to just do a very small reconstruction region because I'm not actually going to export anything. So I'll just do a quick preview model there. Otherwise I won't be able to even go to the export depth of mask. So depth of masks, and pretend we're doing it there. I just need to save these settings here, because if you look, export camera depths is saying yes, and we don't want depth maps, we don't want to save them. So let's go to no. So we're just exporting the masks, and I'll save that setting, and I forgot to copy and paste it. It's just mask settings. Oh, it's the M off. And that will also have the XML extension. We don't actually want to do it, so we can move on to the next line of the script. So that's it. If you watched the last video, you might remember that we didn't actually save this project. We just moved straight on to the next one. So if I just put this new scene command in, it is going to not save it, just create a brand new fresh scene. Now, here, we can do exactly the same thing that we did on side 1 with side 2. So actually, I can just copy and paste the first half of the script. Just copy that. Paste it there, and then just change that from 1 to 2, and then we'll get the masks for the other side. And then now we're getting on to actually making our real model. So again, we want a new scene. Could have copied and pasted that as well, really, couldn't I? And this time we're adding both folders, side 1 and side 2. They will have masks in by the time the script's got down to here. And then again, importing the license. Don't need to do this line by line. And then align. We've had all of these commands before, so there we're adding both folders, the license and aligning. And then I've put in merge components. I happen to know with this data set, you don't need it, but you don't know what your capture is going to be like. This might glue together some dodgy components. Just as a note, this script is not going to work perfectly every time. It will completely depend on your capture. So it's going to be risky to run it. And if you're using the get license, you won't be guaranteed a perfect model every time. It'll totally depend on your capture and what object you're capturing. But if you're more experienced and you've done it a lot of times, and you know what kind of capture is going to glue together, then you can run the script and you'll know whether it's a good bet or not. So I've got merge components in there. Let's go. Now, we're not going to use a reconstruction region because we don't actually have the markers in, so nothing's geo-referenced. So setting an auto reconstruction region is the best option here. Hopefully we're going to have a nice alignment of a nice solid object, and that auto normally goes nicely around the object. And now we're calculating a normal model. So a far more high detailed model, just the same as in the previous video if you saw it, and then calculate the texture. And the next line is to simplify. So we need to make an XML for that because we need to choose our simplify settings. So let's go back into the GUI, and we have this rubbish model here, which we can pretend we're simplifying. And there's the simplify option. So let's say you want a 500,000 triangle model, and you do want to reproject color. Save those settings. I'm going to copy and paste in case I do a typo. Simplify settings, and that will also have the XML extension. So we have our simplify settings. Let's go back to the script, and I think we're getting close to the last line. Oh yes, save. Save again, very self-explanatory. That's going to save the project. Again, it's going to call it plain.rcproj, so obviously you'll have a plain folder as well. And the final line of the script is export selected model. So after you've simplified, your selected model is going to be the 500,000 triangle model. And as you can see with this path, I've actually put an extra folder in there which doesn't exist at the moment, so I'm just going to make that. A new folder, call it model, otherwise it's nowhere to put it. So it's going to try to go to the folder model and save woodplane.obj, and these are the export settings. So it's going to be quite important to set these export settings because it has to be an OBJ, because we've put that extension on. You need to put the model extension on. So let's go to mesh model, export dense mesh model, and well, we're not actually going to export it, but we can just save these settings. Mesh model, but just remember OBJ, because that's what we've selected, and then you can just have whatever settings you like. It's not textured actually. Yeah, let's maybe just quickly texture it so we can actually have a textured model. Okay, that's that funny model textured. So again, mesh model, export dense mesh model, OBJ, and now we can just make sure texture, export textures is set to yes, and it is an OBJ, so you can save these settings. And I'm going to go back again and make sure that I've got the exact same file name. Export settings, save. Nope, don't export that. So now we are done, and we don't need this project anymore. Nope. Don't need that. So there. Now the very final thing, and probably if you're doing this for real, you probably will be just testing the script from time to time. One thing to note is if you get past an export masks part, you will need to delete those masks if you want to run the script again. Right now we've got no masks in the folder, but yeah, if you're doing it bit by bit and testing as you go along, make sure you delete the masks if you made any. So we need to save this as a .bat, and then it will in that folder obviously. So let's go to save as. That's the wrong folder. CLI from scratch is where we are, and we'll call it flip script 2, and the most important part, .bat, and that's going to make it save as a batch file. So let's go to our folder, go back, and there we go. That's the first, that's our script there, and you can see it's got the two little cogs on it, meaning it's a batch file. RealityCapture is not running, so let's, fingers crossed, run this script and hope it works.
When I'm with you, I can't get enough. When you're with me, you can't get enough. Tear down the walls.
Oh, there you go. It looks like I got my reconstruction regions in slightly the wrong place. So my masks didn't work properly, but it's quite an easy fix. So yeah, I probably should have gone higher on the one which was supposed to be filtering. So let's just get rid of that. Tools and lasso and filter selection. But yeah, that can definitely be fixed in the script. But there's the object. It's looking pretty good. So just another few notes. So if your script goes wrong, using a console window can really help. So if you look, just every command is in here. So sometimes when it goes wrong, you'll get all your error messages and stuff in here. So if you ever need to debug your script, That's a good way of doing it. So yeah, I'll make sure that the version which we put in the download doesn't leave those stray triangles, so it should work straight out of the box. A few other things. Just want to show you the masks. That's like side 1. It's quite neat on the mask front. It must be side 2. There's some dodgy masks. Yeah, there's a little squiggly dot there. Yeah, that'll need fixing. But like I said, once you've actually set up your script properly in the GUI, it should just work over and over again without you having to tweak it again. So one more thing. Going back to the desktop. I've got these other versions here. So here we have script recon on CPs, which we will also package up, and I'll show you that in Notepad. So let's say you didn't want to open the GUI at all and just wanted to automatically create your reconstruction regions. There's this command here, set reconstruction on CPs, and there we have 17, 22, 24. Now what I've done is I've chosen those in an anti-clockwise order, and that's quite important. Because this last one's the height in meters. If you don't go anti-clockwise, then the height will go down instead of up. And then scaled it so it goes beyond the actual markers. So 3 on the X and Y, don't need to scale the Z. That can just stay at 50 centimeters. And then center means from the center. You can find all these details in the help, obviously. And then factor means that these numbers are a factor rather than absolute. So it'll go 3 times bigger on the X and Y from the central point. And then move the reconstruction, move it down 4 centimeters on the Z, so it goes below the surface. And then for the reconstruction region to filter stuff, I've scaled it again a bit bigger so that it deletes all of the triangles, and then moved it down so it goes just below the object. This way you can just use numbers to set up your reconstruction regions rather than doing it in the GUI. And then also I have this get license version, which we will put in the package as well. So you can actually delete this line. In fact, I will. So you've got a version which just gets the license rather than imports the license. This is, yeah, because that's a lot more useful for when if you actually want to use this script to license your own models and automatically build them. I'm just going to show you how I eventually fixed the script with 2 more commands. So first, I've already deleted the mask from side 1, so let's delete the mask from side 2. And let's go to the script. And what I've done is I've just deleted that up arrow after calculate normal model, and that will stop the script there. Then file save, I've already saved it. So let's run the script.
When I'm with you, I can't get enough.
Hi there, so that's finished. And as you can see, we've got a funny bit at the side. So in the GUI, how you would get rid of that is you'd go to Tools, you'd go to Advanced here, and select largest component. And then the big one's selected, and then you would invert, and then filter. And that would get rid of everything apart from your actual object. So what we're going to do is figure out how to do that scripting, and this is quite good to show because this is normally how scripting works. Is you're basically going to go to CLI again, list of commands, and then Control F, and then try and find the commands for that. So select largest, I have to write it all in, largest component, and that doesn't exist. So we're going to have to look for it in here. There we go. Select largest model component. So that was pretty easy to find. So I'm going to copy and paste that. We'll put that up arrow in again. Select largest model component. I'm pretty sure that doesn't have any parameters. Select largest model component. No parameters at all. And then invert triangle selection. That's our next one. Stick an up arrow in, Control C, and invert selection, and then again we're going to want to use the remove selected triangles. And that should fix our script, hopefully. So I'm going to save that. Save. Go into side 2. Let's delete these masks. Go into side 1. Delete those masks. I probably could have fixed this by just changing the reconstruction region positions, but I think this is probably a slightly better way of doing it, because you may well end up with some little bits around that need to be got rid of. So the script is saved already. Okay, so let's run the script again, and hopefully that will have fixed it. Okay, let's close that, see what our issue is here. Ah, there we go. You can see I missed the hyphen off there, and I missed the hyphen off here. Missed both hyphens off. Okay, that should work now. File, save, and let's run that script.
When I'm with you, I can't get enough.
And there we go, that seems to have fixed the script really nicely. So if we have a look, in our model folder, there we've got our good plain OBJ. Hopefully it'll load up in a sec with no rubbishy bits. There you go. Anyway, I hope that's given you a good grounding in to start making your own CLI scripts. Thank you very much, and goodbye.